I'm sure everybody has their own memories and recollections of Pope Francis. Mine are both personal and in some ways wide-ranging. I remember when he was first elected, I sat down and I read the document he'd written in 2007 called the Aparecida document from all the Latin American bishops. And that gave a clear understanding of what was going to be his agenda. Simply put, he took the Vatican Council's definition of the Church as the people of God, and he turned it into the community of missionary disciples. And that's what he's been pursuing. A church in which everybody has a missionary call, everybody has a part to play. And that we have seen unfold in the great development of a consciousness of the gifts of God in every member of the church and the need to work together more clearly and with greater intent on the mission of the church. So Pope Francis has been very strong-minded. He said what he thought. He's encouraged other people to say what they think. He's not be afraid of disagreement. Now, you know, alongside that strong-mindedness, I've also found in him an immense sensitivity to individuals. One little story. I sat next one dinner to Alexander McCall Smith, the author, who rather sheepishly gave me a couple of his books saying, would I give these to Pope Francis? So the next time I met, I said, here's an author, he'd like me to give you these books. Thank you, said the Pope. He came back to the meeting after the lunch break with a handwritten note to Alexander McCall Smith, thanking him for his books and asking me to give one of the Pope's books back as a return gift. So with no consequence, he just paid attention to the individual who had expressed this kindness to him. And we saw the same in a very different circumstance. The first meeting when the Pope met some of the victims of human trafficking. And it was at that meeting afterwards when we were posing for a photograph and I was standing next to the Pope and we just launched the Santa Marta group for the fight against human trafficking. And he literally nudged me in the ribs and he said, this meeting's a lot more important than many I have to go to, so please keep it going. So I've tried. Another great characteristic of Pope Francis has been his Jesuit inheritance, tradition, soul. And this means that he's always had an eye on what will bring people, individuals, closer to God. And how is that to be discerned and judged? So he's always been asking us to look at if these steps which are possible for this person might bring them closer to God as a step on the journey. Not the complete thing, but as a step on the journey. And in a way that's all summed up in his constant use of the word accompaniment. We are to accompany people rather than rule and govern. We are to encourage people to take the next step. And that I've seen over and over again in his relationships with individual people. The other great characteristic of his approach and spirituality has been, how can I put this? His insistence on starting at the periphery. That's a word he loves. He's used that word often. Start with the peripheries. We've seen it in the choices of countries he's gone to visit. They haven't been the great capitals of the world in the first case. They've been smaller places on the edge, under threat, excluded in some ways or another. I remember when we were starting in Westminster, a centre to encourage unemployed people to start their own business. And it was right next to the big hotels and the great Wembley Stadium. And I remember saying, you know, if Pope Francis were to come to London, this is the place he'd want to come to, not to Wembley Stadium. And he has always had this priority for those who are in need, those who are suffering exclusion, those who need those words and steps of encouragement. There's no doubt his impact on the church going forward has been tremendous. And it's not as if he's tried to impose, he's tried to draw out from this great, rich, worldwide community of the church to whom he has been a pastor, steps that will get us closer to God. And may he rest in peace.